The Story of Snow White. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a beautiful little princess. Her hair was as black as ebony, and her skin as white as snow, so her mother named her Snow White. When Snow White was still a child, her mother died, and her father the king took a new wife. The new queen was very beautiful to look at, but she was a proud and jealous woman. Each day she would stand before her magic mirror and say, "Tell me, mirror, I command, who is the fairest in the land?" And the mirror would always reply, "You, O queen, are the fairest in all the land." And the queen would smile to herself and feel content. As the years passed, Snow White grew into a beautiful young lady. And then, sadly, her kind father died. Everything changed in the castle. The queen feared that the girl's beauty would outshine her own, and so she forced Snow White to dress in rags and work as a scullery maid. Hard work will soon ruin her beauty, thought the queen, as she watched Snow White sweep the courtyard. The queen was anxious that the castle would look spick and span today, for she was expecting the arrival of a very special guest, the young Prince Roberto the Gallant from a neighbouring kingdom. The queen had heard that he was both handsome and rich, and so she intended to marry him. There was to be a grand ball in his honour, and the queen, quite sure that the prince would fall in love with her instantly, planned to announce their engagement to all present. So deep in thought was the queen that she didn't notice the young man enter the courtyard. Neither did Snow White, as she sat on the edge of a wishing well, dreaming of the handsome prince who would ask for her hand in marriage and carry her off to his palace, where they'd live happily ever after. After watching Snow White for a few moments, the young man spoke. "Good day, fair maiden." Snow White was so startled, she jumped to her feet and ran toward the castle door. "No, stop, please. I didn't mean to frighten you. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Prince Roberto. I come as a guest of your queen. May I ask your name?" "My name is Snow White," she replied softly. "Snow White? The Princess Snow White? I was told you were a child, but I see that you are the most beautiful lady in all the land. Will you attend the ball tonight?" "Oh, I do hope so," said Snow White. "You must," the prince replied, "and you must dance every dance with me." He lifted her hand and kissed it lightly, for he knew that he had met the girl of his dreams. At that very moment, the queen saw them. "Snow White!" she screeched. Oh, I must go," cried Snow White. "Till tonight, then," called the prince as she turned and ran into the castle. The queen could hardly control her anger. That child, that horrible child! How dare she talk to the prince? For the queen had seen how the prince had looked at Snow White. She hurried to her magic mirror. "You there, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror gave her the reply she'd always feared. Though you, O Queen, are quite sublime, there's one who's fairer 1,000 times. Yes, Snow White is a jewel rare. In all the land there's none so fair. In a terrible rage, she summoned her royal huntsman. Take Snow White deep into the forest and kill her. The huntsman protested, but the queen wouldn't listen to him. So sadly, he took Snow White into the forest on the pretense of picking wild flowers. Snow White loved the forest. The trees and flowers were so beautiful, and she loved the little animals and birds that seemed to follow her wherever she walked. Even in the castle courtyard, the little birds would come and sing to her as she did her work. Further and further into the forest they walked. Is it far to the clearing with the wild flowers? She asked the huntsman. I don't want to be late for the ball tonight. Just a little further, said the huntsman. A few moments later, they reached the clearing. Snow White was enchanted with the beautiful multicolored flowers. She dropped to her knees, gathering them into her arms. This was the moment the huntsman had waited for. He raised his knife. Oh, aren't they lovely? Said Snow White, as she turned to show him the flowers, and seeing the knife in his hand, she gasped, What are you doing? He looked into her beautiful face. Her eyes were filled with fear, and he could not bring himself to harm her. Princess, forgive me, he said, falling to his knees. The queen is jealous of your beauty. She commanded me to kill you, but I cannot. You must never return to the castle. You must stay in the forest and hide. Farewell, princess. Take care. Snow White ran as fast as she could. But where would she go? Who would help her? Night was falling, and the forest was dark and frightening. She ran until she could run no more. She fell to the ground, exhausted and sobbing, and there she slept until morning. Where am I? She said as she opened her eyes. She found herself in a small clearing. Around her were the little animals of the forest, and there before her was a little house, a lovely little cottage, right in the middle of the forest. She was overjoyed. She ran to it and knocked at the door, but nobody was at home. So she opened the door and walked in. She was so surprised by what she saw inside. Why, there's 7 of everything. 7 little chairs, 7 plates and cups, 7 little beds. Oh, perhaps 7 children live here. But oh, it was dusty and dirty and untidy. So Snow White cleaned and scrubbed until everything was neat and tidy and sparkling clean. Then she rested across 2 of the little beds and soon fell fast asleep.